Hey Monsters! Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Murder Murder News podcast. These weekly episodes also serve as weekly meetings for our own true crime cult. But don't worry, you've landed in the cult with all of the flower crowns and none of the flavor aid. If you don't know us yet because you're just finding us for the first time today, I'm Angelina and I'm hanging out with my sinister sister, Aurora. How's your week going?
It's great. We are now returned home from PNW True Crime Fest for a week, and we just had the best time in the planet getting to meet everybody and do a live show.
It was so great. Couldn't have gone better. I expected it to go a lot worse.
Yeah. You know, my worst fear for the entire thing was that we would get to our room where we were doing our live case and just no one would be there. That it would be like us and my husband taking our pictures like to an empty stage and that we would just be like, womp womp. But that wasn't
but luckily
the case.
The opposite of that happened.
Yeah.
Like it was full house.
Yeah, it was really great. And we met so many fantastic people. We heard so many people's stories and their connections to true crime. And hopefully we'll have a couple guests that may come on too. A woman that works in a prison in Washington, and she's worked with Gary Ridgway and some other sort of infamous criminals. So I think she would have some great stories there.
The other one was a 911 operator or something, right? Yeah, that would be cool also. So hopefully we will have those folks on because we just loved hearing all of their stories. Like, it's amazing. I thought it would just be like podcasters and fans, but there's so many people that had different connections through work and stuff to true crime, which is neat.
Yeah. And there was also a group of women that we met that were there with CPS, and they were at a convention right across the way for Child Protective Services. And they were saying that, like, you know, their conference had been a bit of a bore. So they were happy to get over to ours.
Hop over to ours.
Yeah. And that's unfortunately one of those intersections of true crime where, you know, unfortunately, like, children are abused and such and neglected. And I think it'd be interesting to have some people from CPS on the show as well.
True. They would give us some insight because I feel like as people who don't have children and have not been children for quite a while, we have very little insight as to like what goes on in there or how that comes into play in cases. So
yeah. And also, like, if you work in an industry like this, where there's kind of an overlap with true crime, either directly or indirectly, and you would like to be on the show, we would love to have you. So definitely send us an email at murdermurdernews@gmail.com and get in touch.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Of course, we consider all of you listeners to be honorary monsters just for tuning in to our show. But if you'd like to make it official, you can join the Monster Commune at patreon.com/murdermurdernews. There you can show your support for all we do by making a monthly pledge of whatever amount you like, whether you've got a few extra bucks or a few hundred. And to show how much we appreciate your support, we'll give you a shout out on the show, give you a cool title like Deacon or Grandmaster of Goats, and we'll send you your very own baby goat, which these were a huge, huge success at the convention for sure. Everyone loved their little baby goats.
They are
Plus
adorable.
Plus, you'll have exclusive access to our regular patron-only content.
We're now posting mostly unedited video versions of our weekly podcast episodes for patrons only. So if you enjoy a good glimpse behind the scenes and can't get enough MMN, we've got you. We're also doing a bit of restructuring around Patreon. We weren't loving the format of our monthly video episodes, and we're brainstorming a new way to bring some exclusive content that you'll really appreciate. So if you have any comments or suggestions, we are all ears. Otherwise, we'll just be throwing some things out there in the next little while to see what sticks. So thanks for your patience with that.
We want to issue a quick correction from our episode on Matthew Shepard from 2 weeks ago. Thanks to Erica for letting us know we were using an outdated term for school counselors. Erica wrote, and this is a quote, "I swear I'm not one of those people that correct things, but I'm a middle school counselor and a huge advocate for students and educators. In fact, I'm running for school board." Good luck, Erica. "So this is minor but important. Please use school counselor instead of guidance counselor. We have stopped using that term many, many years ago because we don't just focus on academics and guide kids. I feel like such a Karen, but I swear I'm not trying to be. Also, please plan a visit to Southern California." So you're definitely not a Karen. And thanks for letting us know. This is one of those things that I think Angelina and I are both kind of out of this realm of school. We've both been graduated for so long and don't have kids.
They were guidance counselors when we were kids. That's for sure.
But thanks for letting us know, because that is really important. And, we apologize for using that for sure. And also we are talking about working in some more live shows in the future, because we had so much fun at PNW Fest, and we'd love to come to Southern California because I'm from LA.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted on that. We'll definitely try and make an appearance in the near future.
Maybe we do like a monster Disneyland trip.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine?
Yes.
That would be so great.
Yes,
You're like,
I can.
I've been imagining this.
I've been imagining this my whole life. And I am an amazing guide at Disneyland, by the way.
I'll bet. You've been hundreds of times. So
I've been so many times. I know like exactly which rides to go on. I have some like cool spooky stories about some of the rides, like people having died on them and such. And there's some like urban legends around Disneyland. Well, fortunately, I think like most of those deaths were like in the 50s, like when the park first
probably
opened.
Closed those or
safety protocols. No, they're still open.
Oh,
Matterhorn.
Okay. Never mind.
They're still open.
Oh God. All right.
But so we would love to do that for sure. We'll
Spooky
definitely let us know if you want us to come to your town, because we're just kind of in the works of thinking about this is something we'd want to do.
Yeah, we want to start mapping out like how we could figure out a tour or what places we could stop in at. So if any of you are involved in events or just know of a really great venue that would be a perfect match for us where you live, definitely reach out and we'll consider all of that. We also want to do a quick shout out to all of our new friends that we met at the Pacific Northwest True Crime Fest, where our last episode and first ever live show was recorded. We met so many amazing monsters and fellow podcasters, but what sticks out the most for us are the folks who joined the Monster Commune that weekend. These incredible people made a pledge on our Patreon after meeting us and went home with their very own adorable crochet baby goats.
It was great to meet you, Tracy, who went home with a little baby goat who we've named Robin. We want to welcome Lisa to the call. We named Lisa's goat Webster. Welcome, Sarah. Your baby goat is named Griselda. Emmeline, we have named your goat Henry. Megan, your goat is named Crystal. Welcome, Sean. Your goat is called Patrice. And last but not least, we want to welcome Brenda, whose goat is named Gomez. Which that is so sweet, because I used to have a little puppy named Gomez.
Yeah, I was thinking of him too when I was thinking of that.
We want to congratulate Reagan, who won our big giveaway basket, and Reagan's goat was named Hector. We appreciate you all so much and hope your goats have found cozy homes with you.
We'll be right back after a quick commercial break.
Good evening, creeps. You know, everybody's entitled to one good scare on Halloween.
I told you, you need to go check on the children.
But the podcasts of the Darkcast Network have enough scares to fill even the largest trick-or-treat sack.
No razor blades, I promise.
Join the pods of the Darkcast Network, including MurderMurder News, Sinister Story Hour, Beyond the Rainbow, Cause of Death, October Pod AM, Rogue Darkness, Over the Fence, and me, Brenda, host of Horrifying History, for a pajama jammy jam of deliciously dark, devilish, and disturbing Halloween treats.
There was always something eerie about the second floor of this house.
We are like the house handing out full-size Snicker bars for your ears. And we're coming to this podcast, yes, the one you're listening to right now, on October 31st. That's Halloween Day 2022 on your favorite podcast streaming apps.
A long time ago, a man murdered his wife in that room.
Don't forget to wear your coziest pajamas for the Darkcast Network Halloween Sleepover, coming to this podcast on Halloween Day.
And we're back.
A year ago this week, we lost a friend of ours and a major support of our podcast to domestic violence. Not a day goes by that I'm not reminded of her and what a gift she was to my life. And it feels important to share her story in this space because she felt like such a part of MMN and because it could help someone who is living with abuse or even someone who is an abuser. I first met Jenny Robertson while interviewing her for a job at a software company in 2008. She was just 23 at the time, and I wasn't much older and really had no idea what I was doing. I had started a software company while I was in college and was still finding my footing. Jenny was the organization to my chaos. We had hired her for a customer service role, but during our next 9 years working together, she worked her way up from customer service to management to COO. There would have been no business without her. We worked side by side, growing our little company, and we really hit the jackpot when we found her. She was the daughter of an accountant and never met a spreadsheet she did not dazzle. Somehow, she seamlessly ran a company of international developers and local managers and customer service representatives, all working from home, making sure everyone felt like they were part of a team. She always made time for everyone. She had a love of musical theater and lived for karaoke. She could come off as shy to new people, but just put a microphone in her hand and watch her transform. She loved crafts and decorating for Halloween, and oh, how she loved to dress up as Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. Her cute curls always made the best Dorothy braids. Jenny could not wait to be a mom and had her son James on October 28th, 2014, the perfect little Halloween baby. I can still remember holding him for the first time when he came home from the hospital and how it seemed like Jenny really had everything she ever wanted. Our company mascot was a rhino, and Jenny had the cutest little knitted rhino hat he wore as a baby. It was so cute. We had found it on Etsy, and seeing that picture just brings me so much joy. I couldn't have been more proud of her. She would make him the most adorable Halloween costumes, and I love seeing pictures of the mini water park she set up for James in her backyard. When Angelina and I had the initial idea for MurderMurder News as a website, I had pitched the idea to Jenny to get her thoughts. Ever the supportive friend, she set up bi-weekly meetings for the three of us to chat and make sure Angelina and I were actually getting things done and adhering to some kind of schedule, which admittedly was going much better with Jenny.
Absolutely.
The last time we spoke to Jenny was around April or May of 2021. This was during the brutal mass shortages of the first few months of COVID, and Jenny spent her time off work at home making masks for coworkers to help keep everyone safe. I could barely figure out how to get off my couch, and Jenny was taking care of others. When I met Jenny 14 years ago, she'd been married to her husband for a few years. They had gotten married just out of high school, and the two moved from Austin to San Diego for his military service. I met him quite a few times at holidays and company parties, and admittedly, I never really felt like he appreciated her the way she deserved. I wasn't a big fan. For me, there weren't any warning signs, and Jenny had never confided in me about anything that may or may not have happened between the two of them at home. She had occasionally mentioned that she was thinking about leaving him, which I just read as something all couples say. I wish I had known more, and I wish I had seen some sort of red flag. In talking to friends after Jenny's murder, it seems like there had been some warning signs, and that's not to place blame on Jenny or her family and her friends. We're just trying to make sense of it. Her husband had a head injury from a motorcycle accident sometime in the recent past, and it sounds like his personality may have changed after that. Apparently, he always had a rage issue, but it got much worse after the accident. There was an incident where he got angry at one of Jenny's friends and he choked her at a party. While processing Jenny's death, Angelina pointed out to me how dangerous a sign choking someone really is. Choking is a big indicator for predicting homicide, with an estimate of 2/3 of people who are murdered by partners having reported being choked prior to their murder. It's something to take seriously. We won't ever know the details of exactly what happened at Jenny's home that day, but her husband shot her and her 6-year-old son James before shooting himself. Jenny was just 36, and James was 1 week away from turning 7. It's still too much to process. Jenny was tough. Jenny was smart. This shouldn't happen to anyone, but Jenny is the one person I never felt like I had to worry about. She could take care of anything.
In the past year since Jenny's murder, we've spent a lot of time thinking about how we can honor her memory. It's important to share her story, and it's important we all do what we can to take care of ourselves. If someone you love or live with ever crosses your boundaries or makes you feel small in any way, please reach out for help as soon as possible. The longer you let things slide, the more deeply enmeshed you can become. To quote a post I've seen making the rounds, if you have never been in an abusive relationship, please don't say you would never allow that to happen, because we too thought that. We are including information for creating a safety plan to reduce the risk of leaving an abuser, because unfortunately, exiting an abusive relationship can be the most dangerous time for a victim. And maybe you're listening and have found yourself exhibiting abusive tendencies. Perhaps you've experienced violence or abusive behaviors in your past, and like so many others, have found yourself repeating the cycle. It's not your fault that you were harmed by someone else, but it is up to you to not pass that harm on to others. It can be a learned behavior, but you can get help and end the cycle of abuse, whether it's physical, verbal, or emotional. We're including sources if you've found yourself in the role of the abuser as well. You have the power to get help.
We are talking to Jenny's friends and family members about keeping her memory and legacy alive in the form of foundation. But in the meantime, please just take some time to appreciate those you love. I never would have seen this coming for Jenny and wish we had more time together. Please take warning signs seriously and make a plan for your own safety. We'll be making a donation in Jenny's honor to SAFE, a domestic violence shelter in Austin, Texas.
Before we dig in, we want to offer a quick disclaimer. Though we joke about forming a true crime cult, that is not to diminish the severity of actual cult activity, and we want you to know that we take the cases we're discussing very seriously.
We want to deliver each story with the utmost respect to victims and anyone involved. If you feel we've missed the mark, you don't like our tone, or if you notice we've gotten any details wrong, let us know with a quick email to murdermurdernews@gmail.com and we'll make it right.
Some specific trigger warnings for this episode include child murder, self-harm, and talk of suicide. If any of those subjects are particularly sensitive for you, feel free to skip this one and listen to one of our other episodes instead.
13 years ago today, 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten went missing from her neighborhood in St. Martins, Missouri. Her mother acted quickly and reported her disappearance within minutes after realizing Elizabeth was no longer her friend's house playing and wasn't answering her cell phone. She had been only houses away with a neighbor, so how could she have vanished in such a short period of time so close to home? An all-out community search involving hundreds of people was conducted in the woods near the girl's home, but she was found brutally murdered 2 days after she went missing. Elizabeth had been lured into the woods by someone she thought she could trust, but the entire community was shaken when the unlikely suspect was identified. Our sources for today include interrogation footage from Explore With Us, Kelly's True Crime, CBS News, Wikipedia, and more. For a full list of our sources, be sure to check out our show notes.
Elizabeth K. Olten was born on December 15, 1999, in Jefferson City, Missouri, to her parents Patty and Dale. Elizabeth had 2 sisters, Stephanie and Candace, and 2 brothers, Anthony and Dale Jr. Her mom has described her as a sweet, girly girl. Her favorite color was pink, and she just loved Hannah Montana and Taylor Swift. She was super into music in general. She was outgoing and would have friends over to play with Barbies. Elizabeth loved all animals, but especially horses. And let's not forget kittens. She liked playing dress up with animals, which reminds us of trying to put doll clothes on our cats as kids. Very relatable. The family was close, and Elizabeth really enjoyed putting together puzzles with her mom, Patty. The two would also bake cookies together. Elizabeth was a 4th grader at Pioneer Trails Elementary School in Jefferson City. The outgoing 9-year-old made friends easily and was looking forward to an upcoming school play.
On the evening of October 21st, 2009, a Wednesday, the Olten family was at home together. Patty was getting ready to make dinner, and Elizabeth was busy rehearsing. Around 5 p.m., 6-year-old Emma, a neighbor from down the street, stopped over to see if Elizabeth could come over to play. Elizabeth and Emma lived just a few houses down from each other in St. Martins, Missouri. At first, Patty said no. It was October, the days were getting shorter, and Elizabeth had to finish rehearsing. But Elizabeth and Emma jumped up and down and begged Patty to let them hang out. Patty gave in, but she told Elizabeth to be home by 6. Elizabeth was afraid of the dark and the sun would be down soon. Plus, it was almost time for dinner. As 6 o'clock rolled around, Elizabeth had not returned home. Patty tried calling Elizabeth's cell phone again and again. There was no answer. She next called Emma's house, and Emma's grandmother, Karen, answered. Karen hadn't seen Elizabeth at their house. Emma had come in for dinner, but Elizabeth was nowhere to be found.
Panicked, Patty called the police by 7 p.m., and it only took 15 minutes for them to arrive. A grid search of the area began almost immediately. Authorities were able to ping Elizabeth's cell phone signal, and the phone's last location had been in the woods behind Emma's house where Elizabeth had been playing. It's possible Elizabeth had cut through the woods in the area to get home, as it was a bit of a shortcut. Had she been injured and trapped somewhere in the woods? The FBI was called in on Thursday, and search parties focused on the woods where her phone had last been pinged. While searching the area, authorities found a freshly dug hole in the ground. The site of the hole was alarming. It was dug in the shape of a rectangle and looked to be about 3 feet long, about the size of Elizabeth. The site was excavated as searchers worried what they might find. The hole was empty. It appeared someone had started to dig a hole, but when they met some tough terrain, they abandoned it and filled it in.
Investigators questioned little Emma about where she had been with Elizabeth and where the 9-year-old may have disappeared. According to Emma, they played together for about an hour outside. At some point, Elizabeth headed home, and not long after, Emma had fallen into a thorny bush, getting trapped. She called out to her 15-year-old half-sister, Alyssa, for help. Having learned that Alyssa had been at home when Elizabeth was over playing, police asked her if she had seen the child or had any idea what might have happened to her. Alyssa had not seen Elizabeth, but she was willing to help in any way she could. While talking to an officer in the woods near the shallow hole that had already been excavated, Alyssa said she'd actually dug that hole. She told officers that she would often dig holes with her 2 brothers around their property and in the woods. They lived in a small town in Missouri, and there wasn't a lot to do.
This behavior appeared strange to investigators, and they ended up searching Alyssa's grandparents' house for any evidence of the 9-year-old. What they found in Alyssa's room was disturbing. She'd written messages on the walls, and some of them appeared to be written in blood. She'd written a poem on her wall about cutting and how it helped her focus and clear her head. There was a drawing on the wall of her sister Emma, and she'd drawn slashes on the arms and head. Things got even darker when they flipped through the pages of her diary. She had written entries about burning down a house with a family inside. Investigators believe she may have been referencing her grandparents' house. In another entry written a week before, she wrote, quote, "If I don't talk about it, I bottle it up. And when I explode, someone's going to die." There was an entry written on October 21st, but it had been scribbled out in blue ink. The only part left unscribbled said, "Okay, I gotta go to church now, LOL." Investigators dug a little further and found that Alyssa had a YouTube page. She had posted a video where she's trying to convince her younger brothers to touch an electric fence. She wrote, quote, "This is where it gets good. We get to see my brothers get hurt." She listed her hobbies as cutting and killing people in her YouTube profile.
As it would turn out, Alyssa had a troubled past. Alyssa's parents had her as teenagers, and they both struggled with addiction. Her mother had trouble paying the rent and was convicted of a few misdemeanor crimes, including drunk driving. Her father was charged with felony assault and was sentenced to 3 concurrent terms in prison. Karen, Alyssa's grandma, took over legal custody of her and her siblings when she was 7 years old. Alyssa felt abandoned and had a hard time adjusting to life with her grandparents. Even as a child, she struggled with depression and would self-harm. In 2007, she was placed in a hospital for 10 days after a suicide attempt. Alyssa had etched the word hate on her skin and had taken an overdose of Tylenol. She was treated with Prozac for her depression, and her grandparents continued to seek help for her with counselors. Alyssa was brought in for questioning, but investigators also wanted to talk to her boyfriend, Dustin. An eyewitness spotted a teenage boy matching his description wearing a black t-shirt and baggy pants on the side of the road near the woods that night.
Dustin was actually brought in for questioning a total of 8 times and was given a polygraph test. He failed. After failing the polygraph, Dustin told investigators Alyssa had told him she had killed Elizabeth. Alyssa had skipped school on October 22nd and had spent the day at Dustin's house, who was homesick. According to Dustin, she had come over and told him what had happened, but he had no involvement in Elizabeth's death. When asked by investigators why he hadn't come forward with the information, he said it was because he was afraid of Alyssa.
Scared of what? Once she ever found out that I gave away information that got her locked up, what if she, like, I have a family and she finds out where I live because she's obsessed about it and kills everybody. What if she gets out on bail and she finds out a way how to take off her ankle bracelet and she comes and kills me in my sleep and my mom, and then finds out where my sister lives and kills her?
That's so scary. I can't imagine being in a relationship with someone that you have that much fear about.
Right. Super scary,
Wow.
but is he
Yeah.
being genuine?
Right. Good question.
I have questions.
Meanwhile, in Alyssa's interrogation, she said she had gone to school on Wednesday and gotten home on the bus around 4 p.m. She sat in her room for a while and then went for a walk in the woods. She came home around 6 and went back to her room. Not long after, she heard her sister Emma yelling for help as she got caught in the thorn bush. Emma noticed she had blood on her pants and asked how it had gotten there. Alyssa told her she was on her period. Her brothers asked if she had seen Elizabeth. This must have been around the time that Patty called. Alyssa said she had not and went inside to get ready to go to church that night.
Investigators then pressed Alyssa for more information about the hole she had dug.
And there were some folks out there out in the forest, I guess, digging some holes or looking at some holes. Mm-hmm. And I guess they had said that you like to go out there and dig holes. So I'm going to have to ask you some stuff about yourself.
Okay.
Because obviously that plays in there. If they were looking at holes and you're out there in the forest and that sort of thing. So right. I guess just tell me a little bit about yourself so I understand where all this is coming from.
I really like nature, animals, being outside. It's just naturistic like that. And I get bored really easily, and I'm entertained really easily. Okay. So, digging holes is just something to do.
You just like to dig holes?
And I like to climb trees.
Okay.
And I bury dead animals that I find because I believe it's respectful to them.
They had more questions about the timeline of when she had dug the hole they found in the forest.
This hole that you dug, when did you dig that hole?
Sunday. I believe, yes.
Why did you dig that hole?
Because Sunday I was bored. You don't really do much on Sunday. Can't watch TV, play video games, So, decided to go outside.
When did you dig it?
Ooh. I think my grandpa would have the exact time. I don't really remember.
What were you doing Sunday? Tell me about Sunday then.
We didn't go to church Sunday, right? Because we were at Mom's house, I believe. I was at my mom's house for the weekend.
Okay.
She lives at the lake. And we came back around 5, and I know I dug it before dark, so it was sometime in between. Wait, what time did we come home?
I didn't pick you up till 6.
Well, it must have been in between 6:37, I guess.
You picked her up where?
Eugene.
You picked her up at 6 p.m. at Eugene?
Right.
And it's how long the drive?
I found.
So you got back home 6:30, 6:45-ish probably?
Maybe right at 6:30.
6:30?
About 25 minutes.
Well, it's getting dark by then.
Yeah.
Well,
so you got home at 6:30.
Yeah.
And how did you dig a hole at what? So what did you do
that's
Sunday? Well, I'm not asking what your grandpa. When you got home at 6:30 at Sunday, what did you do then?
Oh, I think I took a shower and went to sleep, so I don't think I did it. I think it was Saturday, actually. No, because I wasn't here Saturday.
You weren't here Saturday.
Nope.
On Sunday.
Right.
Monday.
I think it was Friday then, because I was here Friday.
It wouldn't seem possible.
Right. Right.
And you weren't here Saturday.
Right.
And you didn't do it during the week because there's only Monday, Tuesday.
Right.
So then you're thinking it had to have been Friday.
Yes.
Alyssa continued to deny having any involvement in Elizabeth's disappearance until investigators divulged that they had, in fact, taken her diary during the search of her room. Not only had they collected it as evidence, they had read it.
We talked a little bit earlier about technology.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you write something down,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Let's say you write it down in pencil, and then you take a pen and try real hard to scratch it out.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make it go away.
Okay.
It's still there. And forensically, and actually you don't even need a whole lot of forensics. If you hold it up to a light, you can see what was written. And then when that's processed forensically, every word, every stroke is still there.
It reminds me of, when we were talking about the woman in the barrel, the Reina Americaine, and they read pieces of paper that had no visible writing on them that had been submerged in a jelly for 30 years, and they still managed to read that. So, like, they can read your diary, no problem.
Yes. And thank goodness for that.
Right?
After learning her last journal entry had been read, Alyssa decided it was time to talk.
If this was an accident, that's fine. We can deal with that. But I have to know what happened. I have to know what the truth was. I have to know how this happened. And the most important thing is we have to know where she's at. We have to give this family some closure. Just like if this was your little sister, you would want closure. This family needs closure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Let's start at the beginning. Is this something that was planned out, or was this just an accident?
It was an accident.
Alyssa painted a picture of what had happened to Elizabeth that Wednesday evening in the woods. She said after she got home from school, she was playing outside. She ran into Elizabeth alone in the woods.
Why don't we start with what happened? You got home at 3:30?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened from there?
I went in the forest, like I said, and wasn't there.
Was there in the forest?
Yes.
Was she alone?
Yeah. We decided to go hang out because it was a nice day. We were just messing.
Take your time.
We were just messing around. And she fell. She died. I didn't know what to do. So I burned her body.
Who helped you?
Nobody.
Wow.
Yeah, quite an escalation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure an alarm bell is going off for most of you right now. If Elizabeth had fallen and hit her head, why hadn't Alyssa gone to get help? It's unlikely anyone would hit their head in the forest and die on immediate impact. Even if she had, why try to hide it? And out of all the ways to hide a body in the woods, why burn it? A fire would have attracted attention from search parties. It would have taken quite some time to actually burn.
Investigators believe Alyssa came up with this explanation, so it would appear there was no evidence to be found. She told investigators that after burning Elizabeth, she dumped the ashes into a stream in the woods. She told them this because she didn't want them to know the truth about what she had really done. Perhaps she was just calling their bluff with this story and hoping they hadn't actually been able to read her scribbled diary entry. But unfortunately for her, that wasn't the case. Alyssa's last journal entry, dated October 21st, 2009, said, quote, "I just fucking killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them. Now they're dead. I don't know how to feel at the moment. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the, oh my God, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kind of nervous and shaky though right now. Okay, I gotta go to church now, LOL," end quote. Investigators pushed Alyssa for more details, insinuating that they would still be able to determine Elizabeth's cause of death.
I understand you said she fell, and that's why she died. However, they will know from the autopsy if she was shot, if she was hit in the head, if her throat was cut. They will know all of that from the autopsy. So we need to know the truth, because at the end of the autopsy, they will know exactly how she died. So we need to know now the full truth, full disclosure right now, so it doesn't come out later that, well, wasn't telling the full truth again. How did she kill her?
She died.
How did she die? 9-year-old girls don't just die.
We were messing around. Then she fell back and hit her head.
Was her throat cut?
Yeah. Oh.
At this point in the interrogation, Alyssa's grandmother, Karen, became upset. She's crying and she left the room. Alyssa seemed almost relieved and then offered a full explanation of how she murdered Elizabeth.
Okay, good. Slit her throat and strangled her.
Strangled her?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You strangled her with your hands?
Yes.
Okay. Did she have a knife on you?
Yes.
Did you cut her throat at any time?
Yes.
Cut her throat afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you strangled her first until she was unconscious, dead, and then you slit her throat.
Mm-hmm.
And did you stab her then?
Mm-hmm.
Did you do anything else to her?
No.
Okay. And then what happened after that?
I'm gonna bury your body.
You buried her?
Yes.
Is your body still out there?
I think so.
According to Alyssa, she left her home that evening with a kitchen knife hidden in her clothes. When Elizabeth was over at her house playing, Alyssa lured her into the woods by saying, "I've got something really neat to show you. It's just a little further up here." Alyssa guided her to a hole she'd already dug the previous Friday. Some have speculated that she had dug 2 holes in the woods because her initial plan was to kill both of her brothers and bury them. Others speculate that the original hole she had dug was too tough of a spot and she switched locations. Once she had Elizabeth alone in the woods, she strangled her until she was unconscious, stabbed her 8 times in the chest, and slit her throat. Elizabeth, the sweet girly girl, was buried in a shallow grave covered in mud and leaves, just inches underground. Alyssa had been unaware that Elizabeth had her cell phone with her at the time, and it was buried with her as her mom frantically tried calling.
After murdering Elizabeth, Alyssa went home, washed the kitchen knife off in the sink, and left it there. She wrote in her journal and then went to a dance at her local Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The next day, she skipped school and went to her boyfriend's house. It's believed she told him and another friend about killing Elizabeth. The friend told police Alyssa had called saying she'd done something really bad. Her friend asked if she knew about the little girl who was missing. Alyssa said yes and asked why she was asking. Alyssa kept repeating, it was all supposed to be a game.
It seemed investigators had solved Elizabeth's case, but there were still some questions about whether or not Alyssa had acted alone. Could a 15-year-old girl really have murdered a 9-year-old and buried her body? Her boyfriend had said Alyssa wasn't very strong. Was it possible he had helped her? Some people allege that a friend of hers had helped, and others believe her grandfather at least helped her dig Elizabeth's grave. Part of this confusion came from Alyssa's ever-changing story of when she had dug the holes. It seemed a little wild that she had dug them in advance, but it also seemed unlikely that she had carried a shovel into the woods while guiding Elizabeth to her death. Aside from that, her boyfriend had also made a strange statement during his interrogation.
All that I know is what the FBI told me.
What did they tell you?
They told me that she buried him and then slit her throat and stabbed her. She already had a dug hole. And then buried her. She wasn't big enough, so then they buried her again.
They buried her again?
I mean, yeah.
Who's they?
I mean,
Interesting.
Yeah. The audio is a little hard to make out at the end, but when the investigator asks Dustin who they is, he responds, I mean, Alyssa. Two potential slips here are referencing they, and also mentioning that they tried to bury Elizabeth in one grave, but it wasn't big enough, so they moved her. Could there have been any truth to this, or was Dustin just confused? And what about the witness who saw someone matching Dustin's general description near the scene of the crime that night? After her confession, Alyssa led investigators to Elizabeth's body on October 23rd, 2 days after her tragic death. She was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Yet, there would be quite a few challenges in Alyssa's trial. Firstly, Alyssa's confession was ruled inadmissible in court after Alyssa's designated juvenile officer, Toby Meyer, wrongly participated in her interrogation. The purpose of a juvenile officer is to provide advocacy, but Toby can be heard encouraging Alyssa to be honest and to provide details of the murder. In 2009, Alyssa pled not guilty to Elizabeth's murder, but in 2012, she accepted a plea deal to the lesser charges of second-degree murder and armed criminal action in order to avoid the death penalty. Her defense team argued that the reason Alyssa had acted out violently was because she had an increase in her dosage of Prozac 2 weeks earlier. A psychiatrist testified that the drug had reportedly caused, quote, an abundance of suicides and violent events, including homicides. That's actually something I was wondering about in the first place when you mentioned Prozac, because that was like the first drug that I ever took as an antidepressant, right. And also learned in a hard way, I guess, that it causes suicidal ideation in minors, and it's definitely not recommended for the use of, treating depression in minors. So that was curious to hear in the first place. But
yeah, I would love to know more about that. I think it's really fascinating. I was also on Prozac when I was in high school, and that was probably one of like the toughest mental health periods of my life. Yeah. And I think it could be argued both ways, that it's like you have all these hormones, you're a teenager, like you're already in this kind of dark space, and then maybe Prozac is helping and we're associating it with it being harmful. But
if you never thought about suicide before, that's...
Exactly. And I would like to see some more studies on this, and I'm sure that they're available. I was going to go down that path while researching this story today, because that's definitely like one of those paths I would have liked to have gone down. And unfortunately, with being sick, I just kind of ran out of time. But I'll bet a certain Fanny of ours would have answers to this. So Fanny, please let us know, and we'd love to read that response.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear about these homicides as well, if that's true, that it had caused some homicides. I would like to hear about the history of that.
I would be curious, because I know in the book that we had read on the Columbine shooters that they were, I believe, on Prozac. And that's definitely been a theory that has been floated out for, increase in school shootings. I don't know. I don't know what to think. I know it's been something that people like to talk about. So I would love to see more research actually on that topic, just because, like you, I know that it definitely put me in a very dark place when I was in high school. And I ultimately went off of it because it seemed more damaging for me than it was doing good at the time.
For sure. But as well, we know that, different drugs work very differently on different people.
Absolutely.
And also we know that there's mixed feelings about things like antidepressants. There's people out there that just hate them altogether and would love to vilify them. So
yeah. And so I definitely don't want to say anything like that. Like, we're not saying it's the cause, root of all evil. It does so many wonderful things for so many people.
To think about.
But I would be interested to see more studies, or somebody that happens to be an expert on this topic. I would be very curious to know more about it.
Agreed.
It did not work in her favor. They ruled that there was not enough evidence pointing to the increase in homicide in teenagers at her trial. In her victim impact statement, Patty Price, Elizabeth's mom, said, quote, "I will just say that I hate her. I hate everything about her. What I hate most of all is what everybody says about her age. The only thing her age makes her is an evil monster. 8 times she stabbed my child. In her own words, it was amazing and enjoyable. She threw her in a hole and covered her in dirt like she was nothing. But she was something to me." She ended by saying, "So much has been lost at the hands of this evil monster. Elizabeth was given a death sentence, and we were given a life sentence. A few weeks later, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of conditional release and a consecutive sentence of 30 years. In 2014, Alyssa attempted to appeal her conviction, stating that she would not have pleaded guilty in 2012 had she known of a pending U.S. Supreme Court case that affected how the justice system should handle cases of juveniles and first-degree murder cases. The case ruled that juveniles could not be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her appeal was denied. Elizabeth Olten was laid to rest in a pink casket, pink being her favorite color. Her body was carried by horse-drawn carriage to the cemetery.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a uniquely beautiful funeral, for one thing, but also, wow, what a complicated case. It's always complicated when you're talking about child offenders as well. So it's... Ugh.
Yeah. And, this one, we choose to focus on victims in our stories rather than criminals. But I couldn't help, while reading quite a bit about Alyssa and her life in prison, and people just kind of weighing in on her. And a lot of people are upset that she only received 30 years and that, eventually she will be out at a not super old age. And, I have quite mixed feelings about that, but also she has like fan clubs, and it's real icky.
See, and that lends to the first issue as well, because when you first said, people are concerned about her getting out so early, I'm not sure that I necessarily feel negatively towards that, because I have heard about some instances where people were child offenders, and then obviously they're very different people by the time they are adults, and those complicated hormones are gone, and they've received therapeutic treatments, things like that. But it's just... with fan clubs, I could see that fueling the fire. You know, I could see her getting even more psyched up about it in prison and then just ready to continue.
Me. And like maybe she's not feeling that. I don't know, because it was too gross for me to even look into to see if she's like, you know, into it or whatever. If she's kind of like, hey guys, stop this. No, I did this thing. I do know that in court, she had apologized and made a statement that she wished it could have been her that died instead of Elizabeth, which to me felt like genuine remorse. But I know that Patty, her mom, did not buy it and thought it was an act and thought she was just saying it to get leniency. So, you know, I don't know what to make of it for sure, but
very complicated.
Very complicated.
It's always complicated because like we were just talking about, you know, the cycle of abuse is really pervasive. So obviously people like, you're not going to probably act out like this unless someone has done wrong to you as well. But like, it's up to you to break the cycle. But like when you're still a child and you're still processing that, it's so complicated. So
and it's like with the cycle of abuse, I feel like those are kind of learned responses to maybe something that, you know, is aggravating a situation. Like her journal entry being on such a high from the murder and being like, it was amazing.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
And clearly doing this for fun, not as not feeling like a victim, not feeling like she was trapped, not having other emotions tied to it.
Hating her victims and being like, if I just kill somebody, like it will get, you know, something will improve in my life, or I need to get my revenge or something like that. It wasn't that sort of mentality. So
yeah, it's an innocent 9-year-old girl. And it's a little girl that had nothing to do with her. Like they had practically no relationship. She had said in part of the interrogation that occasionally Elizabeth would come over to her house to go swimming, and she made a joke that she found her to be a little annoying. Same thing she had said about her sister. But like, I mean, aren't all 9-year-olds like if they're swimming, they're gonna splash and like whatever?
All kids are annoying, especially to teenagers.
Yeah, but like she didn't know her well. It's not like this is a girl that was close to her.
There's not a personal problem or like any reason to go after her specifically.
It's quite a random, incredibly brutal murder, and it's you know, like stabbing her 8 times and strangling her. It was such an overkill.
So let's hear about all the stuff you've been watching.
All right, I've got a list.
All right.
So in no particular order, because I have such a list, I'll just like not say much about any of them. I'll just kind of list them and say if I like them or not. How about that?
Yes.
So on the like list, The Curse of Bridge Hollow.
Oh, I watched that also. I forgot to mention to note that down to talk about, but
very cute. If anyone's looking for like a cute, like spoopy, family-friendly Halloween movie, it's definitely going to make its way into my like yearly watch when I want to watch something like cute and made for kids.
Very fun.
Also on the good end is Smile, the horror movie. And I thought it was great. People have compared it to It Follows. It's very like spooky and creative, and like seeing people smile will kind of like feel a little like
creep you out
for the next couple of days. Like it's very good. I've
heard lots of people, including you, I believe, say that this definitely feels like it's more enjoyable to watch in theater. So
yes, yeah, and I think you can only see it in a theater.
Oh, I mean, like rather than waiting.
Right, right. Yeah, go see it now. I just loved it. I went to see it with my hairstylist, who, at the time, she was like, "This is cheesy. This is not scary."
But then she got scared.
Screamed like at one part, like at a jump scare towards the beginning of the movie, and I screamed so loud that the people sitting next to me moved seats. I felt really bad. It was not like I was not like like putting on like a show or anything. Like it was like a real
problem.
like
it's
it got
a horror
me.
Movie. Get out.
So that one I recommend. And then the next few I felt like iffy about, if didn't love, like they were okay. Halloween Ends, did not love.
I've heard bad things.
It's streaming on Peacock, Angelina. You can easily watch it.
I'll watch it then. And then I'll tell you whether it's bad, which I've been hearing it is.
I was very disappointed. it's not like not worth the watch. Like watch it if you're into the franchise. You know, you got
For
Jamie
closure.
Lee Curtis. If you're into Real Housewives, everyone's favorite housewife to dislike, Kyle Richards is in it. Like watch it and, you know, hate watch her.
Yeah.
But it's really not very good. I also saw Bodies, 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 a horror movie that came out this summer. And
Never heard of it.
It's a very great concept. And I guessed it like pretty early on after I think like the second kill. And my friend I was watching it, shout out to Mimi, I think was like, all right, Aurora, I get it. Like you're wrong. Like there's no way that's the end. But I was right. And I called it in the second kill and I totally like called it.
That's awesome.
Pete Davidson's in it. I think he's the only like celebrity, but it's okay. I didn't love it. Just okay. Then I also saw Luckiest Girl Alive on Netflix.
Oh, I watched that too.
And this I actually wanted to bring up just to give everybody a great big trigger warning. If you're thinking about watching it on sexual assault, there is an incredibly graphic gang rape scenario.
And long.
And it's long, it's drawn out. Like I swear it's 10 minutes. It's very, very upsetting.
Disturbing. Yeah.
You know, when watching it, I was like kind of angry. I was like, why do we have to have like every woman's story have a rape in it? And why do we have to depict it in this way? But it is the author's story of the book, which I didn't realize. And it's like told through her lens. So she absolutely has every right to tell her story in this graphic way. So I'm like, okay, I'm not mad. I just didn't want to watch that myself. Like that's too upsetting. Yeah. But did you watch this one too, Angelina?
Yeah, I had read before I watched it that there was some things that should really have some trigger warnings. So I knew that going in, which served as, I guess, a trigger warning for myself. So I was like, I knew what to expect. I thought like the story was good and the movie was interesting and overall pretty good. But yeah, you got to watch out for those things because it is very, very disturbing. And I was yelling at my television the whole time because of the comments that different people were making. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. A lot of cringe in it, but like making a statement. It's good. You know, Mila Kunis is always great. I really enjoy her. It's always surprising to me when people don't. I love that 70s show so much. And she's also so great in The Spy Who Dumped Me.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah. So that one, like, don't watch it if that will be a trigger for you. That was my big takeaway. But if that's not a trigger for you, or if you want to approach it slowly, then maybe take breaks or whatever. I did think it was well done. And then the last one I watched was The Watcher, which I don't know. I just like don't think I like Ryan Murphy. Which like I'm sorry, y'all. I know I'm probably gonna get some hate for that. Y'all know I just will not watch Dahmer. I'm so upset about like the way that victims' families were treated. But I don't think I love him that much. I like one season of American Horror Story, the witch one, really well. And I also like the Lady Gaga one, but like I just don't think I see his vision.
Personally, I am a fan, I've got to say. I like, in general, the style. I didn't watch Dahmer and I won't. I don't necessarily think that his style of doing things is the best way to approach true stories, particularly ones like Dahmer, where it's already really gruesome, just the facts. And like, you don't need to embellish or lean on that because like, it's already really fucking gross and scary. But with fictional stories, I think it's great. There's a lot of, like I didn't love, Glee and I didn't watch 911 or whatever, but like the other stuff in general, I like, and I in general liked The Watcher as well, which is a true story, but it's not the kind of true story.
Real loose.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's a true story about something that is not solved. So
they fill in a lot of blanks. Like I would say it's like 10%, like the letters are true. Nothing else is true.
Right. So like you can only imagine, I guess, like who you would suspect and why, but all of those characters are not like based on real people. So you can't be like, oh, I bet it's this person. I bet it's this person in real life, because those are not real people or how the real neighbors necessarily acted. But.
Yeah. I love that Jennifer Coolidge is in it. She's just
I love that
great.
Too.
She's fantastic.
Great. And I love Naomi Watts as well. So
yeah. And also like I found like John List, the Family Annihilator has been a story that has haunted me for so long, like since I was a child, like seeing it in an episode of, I don't know what TV show I was watching, and being very suspecting of my father and being like, how can we ever trust a man? Like when this shit happens. And so like seeing that kind of like played out in that show, I thought was interesting. And they actually stuck pretty close to that story. They don't call it the List family. They say, I think it's like Gaff or Graff or something family. I can't remember. But their names are all the same. It's Patricia the daughter and John the dad. And like the names are the same as the actual family members. Like he had killed the other family members and went to pick his son up from sports practice and came home and murdered him. So that like there was no reason to bring that into the story. That kind of felt like American Horror Story, that Lady Gaga season, when they kind of are telling
random. There was no reason to bring it into the real story, but I think where they're trying to create this false like being suspicious of everyone, it brings another possibility into the ring. But like all that stuff is fictionally tied in for sure. So it's like what sucks about watching The Watcher is that you want to watch it and sort of guess who it's supposed to be, or try and like shift your guess throughout the time that you're watching it, but you're never going to get your conclusion. So regardless, it's like
I keep seeing people saying, I guessed it from episode 1, and I'm like, did you? Because they don't give us resolution.
Yeah.
I don't think you did.
What?
Did you guess there will be no resolution? If so, you're right.
Yeah. But I think it's an enjoyable watch. Like I definitely watched it all at once. So
I liked the beginning. I liked the first few episodes, and then it just like too many red herrings. And like, and you know that they're red herrings, and especially like I think the last red herring, which I won't like give anything away, with a PI. Like I was like, no, too far. You've taken it too far. Like now we've like accused everybody and whatever. So like, it was just
that part was really especially unrealistic. And like at certain points of watching it, I feel like maybe they were just playing into the unrealisticness of it and just be like, let's really ham it up, which is fine, I guess. Especially in a true story case that isn't about gruesome murder. It's just kind of creepy stuff. It's like you can ham it up if you want with that, I guess.
And I like the family, I think that this happened to has been quite vocal in telling their story. Hopefully they consulted them this time. Who knows? But it is heavily fictionalized, at least, and it's intended to be. But I thought all the acting was great. Naomi Watts. I don't know the guy that plays the husband, but he's always so great in things.
No, I don't
know his name.
Oh, actually, I do know him. He was in 9 Perfect Strangers.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I should say I know who he is. I don't know his name.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know his name either.
He's great. And I loved him in 9 Perfect Strangers too. And my husband said he was in Boardwalk Empire.
Oh, I
didn't watch that. Maybe how he got his start. I'm not sure.
Probably.
Okay, so those are all mine. I think there's actually more, but I'll save them for next week. What were yours?
So my other ones that weren't The Watcher were, I watched My Best Friend's Exorcism. Did you watch that before?
No. What's this?
So I've read that there's some negative reviews on this, but personally, I loved it. It was very cute. It's like 2 teenage best friends in the 80s, and like their parents are religious, and like, it's weird to be queer at that time, and people tease you about it, and all sorts of just like, they create this whole vibe of what it was really like living in those times with those kinds of people and ideas around you. And then you throw in that one of the 2 best friends gets possessed. And so then there is an exorcism, but it's just like, it's not really about exorcism necessarily, although there is these fun, like spooky things tied in. It's more, I guess, about friendship and coming of age and whatever. So it's cutesy, but
is it like a horror comedy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I find it pretty cute.
I love
enjoyed
horror comedies.
It a lot.
I think it's honestly like my favorite genre.
Yeah. It's really, and like even teen ones like this where, I think it's rated 14A or something like that, but it's like, it doesn't necessarily feel like, oh, this is just for kids. Like it's still, I enjoyed it. So I think it's a fun watch. If you're just generally like a spooky bitch and can relate to that, then you'll dig it, I think.
Nice.
And the other thing I watched was Mr. Harrington's Phone.
I watched that too.
Okay. That is apparently a Stephen King story. So that is interesting. Yeah.
What'd you think of it?
I thought it was okay. It was like, also an enjoyable watch. I wanted to see what happened and whatever. And I think the kid, the main actor in it, is really good. But like, I don't know, it was kind of silly. But like,
yeah. I did not dislike it. I also said I would say it's okay. But the first 30 minutes, I was like, is this just like an iPhone ad? Like he's seriously sitting like, look at the icons on this iPhone.
When an old
you can
man
look at the stock markets on
and
your
now
iPhone.
You like it.
Right? I'm like, am I just getting tricked into just watching a commercial?
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty silly. But like, and it felt like just like, for the most part, it felt like just a straight up drama, although there was some like scary aspects. It didn't have like a horror movie vibe, so that was weird.
More horror. I could have used more mysterious deaths, and like he's like really like building and struggling and like whatever.
Yeah.
But it was okay.
Yeah,
good acting.
Yes.
I do want to mention something really fast since you're talking about exorcisms. Yeah. I have a friend who listens to this podcast. I won't name her name because she hasn't given me permission to use the story, but she went to Catholic school as a kid and was like rebellious, like I think so many people who are kind of forced into a religious school situation that don't want to be. And at one point, her parents wanted to do an exorcism on her, and they brought a priest over to her house for an actual exorcism.
Wow, that's so weird.
You should have her tell that story.
Actually, that would be great. I would love to talk about that. I feel like this has been, maybe I'm imagining it, and if I'm imagining it, someone should invent this. Yeah. But I feel like, was there like some kind of reality show about something like this where it was like people think that the person needs an exorcism, but it's actually just something else? I feel like
I hope it's a real thing.
I might be imagining this. And if I am, like, I have some realistic dreams sometimes. That sounds amazing. I don't know what is real anymore. But that might be a thing. I'm going to look it up and see. And if it's not,
and
we
you're
or
a producer,
somebody has to make that.
send us a line. Let's do this together.
Yeah, that would be so fun. Well, I guess that's enough murder for 1 week. If you need even more murder, you can get your fill on MurderMurder.news, where we post the latest breaking true crime news articles every day of the week.
You can also find us on Instagram at MurderMurderNews, on Twitter at MurderNews, on TikTok at MurderMurderNews, and on Facebook. If you search for MurderMurder News, you will see our page pop up.
And when you're on Facebook searching for MurderMurder News, you'll also see our group pop up. You'll want to join us there to chat about all things true crime, but also to stay in the loop about our upcoming virtual and hopefully live events and our book club selections. Right now, we're reading The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and we'll meet on Zoom to discuss the book on Sunday, October 30th. Being so close to Halloween, we're going to request that anyone who comes out to October's book club meeting shows up in costume.
Yes, I have mine ready, and I just finished the book, and I really liked it.
Woo, I haven't even started it yet. I was on such a roll for a few months there where I finished the book way in advance, and now I'm back to like doing it last minute.
You have plenty of time.
Sorry.
I started it, I think, around the first of the month, and I could have, if we wouldn't have been so busy last week, I would have finished it sooner. It's a quick read, so if anybody listening to this is thinking about coming to book club, you still have time to read it.
Yeah.
It's pretty fast, and it's very engaging.
Awesome.
If you love our show, let us know by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Reviews really help keep us afloat. They help new fans find our show, and they let us know which content you've been loving the most so we can keep creating more of what you like.
Thanks for listening.
Bye, friends.
Bye.